Well, welcome to the Stanley Safaris Podcast, where we chat to the owners of the safari camps, lodges, and hotels that we love to send our guests to. And today we're chatting to Nina Scott, one of the owners of Tanda Tula, based in the Timbavati Private Game Reserve here in South Africa. Thank you for joining us today, Nina. It's great to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Sean. It's great to see you again. It's been a while, and looking forward to catching up.
Perfect. Well, why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself and where it all started for you and Tanda Tula. I know that the camp was there before you guys got involved. So what was your inspiration to get involved, and what was your vision back then for Tanda Tula?
Sure. So we're going back quite a few years, but basically Tanda Tula was originally founded in 1976. So it's got a huge history with the Timbavati Nature Reserve. By the way, we've dropped the private and we've just become Timbavati Nature Reserve. And so that was in 1976. So it's massive legacy. This camp really has been around for decades and really entrenched itself as probably the first, one of the first commercial safari destinations in the Timbavati going back to the 70s. And long story short, Don and I, my husband and I, had a bit of a revelation in the early 2000s, and we wanted to leave the corporate world, which we did. Always had a passion for safari, and we started our journey in the early 2000s, which took us actually straight to the Timbavati. And then, long story short, in about 2008, we started discussions with the then owners, the McKay family, and of Tanda Tula, and they just needed to, breathe some new life into this camp, and we came in as investors at that time. As partners, and it was a tented camp at the time, but it had been built in 1995. So it was we love the tented camp. So I'll tell you about that. There's some news coming up that'll talk about tented again, but it was a tented camp then, and it was absolutely stunning. I love the tented camp. The old sort of safari style, East African, Botswanan influenced camp. You remember the camp then?
Yes, yeah. I saw it back then.
Yeah. But 1995, so, that's the
old school.
Some very old school stuff happening there. Anyway, but COVID came and went, which shocked the world and all of us in our industry. Yep. And then we actually brought in a new partner. The McKays had exited a few years prior to that, and we brought in a new partner. And together after 2022, we said, okay, now we're starting to breathe again post-COVID. Let's see. Ricky, our now new partner, said, listen, I'd really, really love to be part of the Tanda Tula brand. He's the land owning partner, so he owns the land. And he said, look, I'd love to be part of Tanda Tula brand. Is there any way that I can invest and become a partner with you guys? And we're like, we're up for that big time. And so together, jointly with Ricky, we the first thing he said was, what do you want to do about Safari Camp, Tanda Tula Safari Camp? And we were like, okay, we need to overhaul this thing. And as it turned out, we thought we would go tented, but actually, as we started digging around, we realized that, when they built stuff in the 1990s, it was honestly like there was no architect involved. There was drawn on the back of a cigarette packet, and that kind of thing. It's like, we'll put it here and we'll put it there, and we realized actually that there was so much infrastructure underground that we needed to get rid of, because if you really want to be light, you've got to relook at the legacy infrastructure that's sitting around you. And oh my God, what did we find? Okay, so we decided to overhaul the whole thing.
Rubble and all of that sort of stuff that had just been filled into holes.
in the 1970s and the 1980s, if you wanted to get rid of a refrigerator, you buried it. It was
Hopefully
too
there was
far to
nothing
go
in it.
to town. It was too far to go to town and drop it off at the train station, sort of thing.
Sure.
So we then got in a wonderful architect, Nicholas Pluman. He's very well known in our safari world throughout Africa, having built some phenomenal lodges, and we brought him on, and we're very excited to work with him. He's a lovely man, and together we sort of planned a vision for this camp. And I think the whole thing was we wanted to make sure that the camp was light footprint, that it was light infrastructure, that it had water-wise systems, that we worked with solar, and that we sourced everything from South Africa. That we didn't import stuff. And so that was the sort of vision there. We decided to go away from tents and went with this amazing flat roof structure, which really brought down the visual impact of the lodge. So the lodge with the old thatched roofs over the tents. I mean, you have this huge infrastructure, actually visibility from everywhere. And when we brought it down, it was absolutely astounding how we could see for the first time these epic trees on that riverine, which the thatch, which is very dark, actually blocks everything out. So all of a sudden, this riverine came alive, and I said to Nick, whatever you do, and this is not, and Nick doesn't do this. Nick is a very unegoistic architect, which I love. And I just said, whatever you build, don't try to compete with the architecture of nature. I want it to blend, and I want it to just pass seamlessly from one space to another, which he did. And it was absolutely incredible what turned out. I do have to say that in the planning phases, with Nick, we had the first renderings, and we shared the first renderings with all of our Tanda Tula staff. We put up a big screen in the kitchen and called everybody in, every single staff member, and they knew that we were going to rebuild the camp, but now they didn't know what was coming. And so we put up the renderings and we started to describe things. Well, we got a standing ovation of whooping and whistling and just the delight. It was really wonderful to share it with them. And then afterwards, it was astounding how some of our staff members came to us, like Scotch, Scotch, our guide who's been with us for now 31 years.
Sure.
And Scotchy came to us and said, Nina, Don, you guys make us feel safe. And this was just post-COVID, when people were losing their jobs and losing everything. And I was like, wow, I never actually saw it like that. And of course, it makes so much sense. So they have been on the journey with us, this journey of transformation all the way. And it was really something that I think our staff really needed this. Our staff, so many of them have been with us for more than 20 and some more than 30 years. So they've really seen the transformations. And even one staff member, David Matibula, he's been with Tanda Tula since 1976.
Sure.
And whilst he is retired, he does come back and freelance as a chef for us every now and then. And for him to have seen these multiple transitions over so many decades, it's lovely to have them all part of the journey with us. And so we've got this new amazing safari camp, and it's been a huge success. I must say, absolutely incredible. And, the plan forward is to have 3 Tanda Tula products within the region. And that's kind of where we're headed. I hope I've answered your question. That was a very long-winded answer.
No,
sorry.
Perfect. No, that's great. It's nice to get the backstory and understand where we are now. I mean, I stayed there March earlier this year. And absolutely loved it. And even, you talk about the flat roofs, but inside it's the ceilings are huge. So you got these incredible views out over the riverbed and the forest beyond. So I think you've done an amazing job in the design element there. It's looking really, really beautiful.
Yeah.
And then
Thank you.
you touched briefly on the local factor in terms of buying your produce and all of that. Talk a little bit about the conservation and community initiatives that Tanda
Yeah.
Tula works with. And, I know when we spoke a couple of years ago, you were talking about how you're trying to buy your produce from the local communities as opposed to trucking it all in from Johannesburg and
Absolutely.
things like that. How is that going?
Really well, actually. So this has really sort of been a mission of Don and mine for the last 20 more plus years, how to actually really become relevant within the eyes of our communities. We are all in our safari worlds. We are all, I kind of see us as living in these 5-star bubbles in the nature reserves. And if we do not pay very, very close attention to our communities and truly understand them, we will not be relevant in their eyes. And then there is no ability for us to preserve the land that we are existing on, whether we own it or lease it or whatever. So, this was an opportunity for us as we had re-flourished the brand in 2023. We already had some programs in place. As you know, we had our Tanda Tula Education Foundation. So that's been going on since 2013. And that's where we focused mainly on education and healthcare. So we had still have an adult literacy program and that's all in-house. And this is for all staff members who want to improve their English literacy. We have a full-time teacher. Back in 2013, 50% of the staff, 28 people pitched up at my office. I wanted to start a reading club. Okay,
Sure.
It was a reading club. Me and Smiling, the barman, Smiling Obisi. And I said, I'm doing a reading club. And I had 23 people standing outside my office saying, we're coming to the school. I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. So I phoned a friend who's a specialist in adult literacy, adult education in Johannesburg. I phoned her and I said, what do I do? And she said, well, you're single-handedly trying to take on the South African education system. I was like, okay, that doesn't help. Give me some pointers. And anyway, long story short, we started this program. So for us, sort of education, healthcare, and then livelihoods are sort of very, very key fundamentals in this rural South African situation. I'm sure it's quite similar across many parts of the country. But Limpopo is particularly impoverished. Eastern Cape being the most impoverished, Limpopo is the next. Sure. We also have a situation in Limpopo where most heads of households are actually teenage kids.
Sure.
Because either their parents are migrant laborers or the HIV has taken a lot of adult people, and or there's a granny and that's it. And so we've got this massive problem. So in fact, if you look at the bigger picture, education is a big thing. We've got that already going. It's been rolling since 2023. We've got seven students at Southern Cross Schools in Hoedspruit, which is a private school. We've got 3 at university, soon to be a 4th. So we're really, pushing as much as we can into the education side.
Sorry, just on the kids that are at the school, if I remember correctly, at some point you sat with your team and you offered them some opportunities, and one of them was to send their kids to school, and most of them chose that. What is that?
So what happened was in 2015, some of our staff members became shareholders in the business. And that was Dale and Haley Jackson and Foreman Matibula. So we're one of the few lodges in the area that actually has operational staff members that are shareholders in the business, which is really, really, it's a game changer for us. Yeah. In most cases, shareholders are sitting away in Johannesburg or Cape Town or London or whatever. And so that was what we did in 2015. And then, about 2 years later, the business was really, picking up really, really nicely, doing so well. We then discussed with us as the directors, with Foreman and Dale and Haley and myself and Don, do we offer profit share for those staff members that really have incredible longevity with the company? So there's a whole bunch of them. Well, profit share was an option that came up, and I actually said, I think we need to give a choice. We don't just want to do things like this is what you're getting, and this is, give them a choice. So we said profit share, or we educate your child at Southern Cross Schools with our kids, which is a private school. Every single one of them went for education.
Well, wow.
And, profit share could have gotten all sorts of fancy stuff, but none of them went for it. It was absolutely astounding. And Sean, you'd be delighted to know that for the first time, those high school graduates, which are Scotch's Son Expect, Foreman's Son Allied, they have graduated now, and they are now working at Tanda Tula under the mentorship of their own parents.
Wow.
And so now we're getting this sort of intergenerational trend of staff that's coming through. And those are not the only ones. There's about 5 or 6 others as well. So it's, I think, it's astounding what education can do. And I really want to sort of press this point. So often, scholarships are awarded to kids that are brilliant and naturally bright or athletic or whatever it is, and that for me is wrong. Scholarships should be available to kids of all levels, because all of the bright sparks and the athletes will leave this country.
Yeah.
What we want is we want them to stay.
Yeah.
We want them to stay. So we're building education. Hello, my kids are back. We're building education opportunities for youngsters that will hopefully stay within the region, within the industry, within their own communities, and become mentors to their own people and their own peers. And we're already seeing that happen, which is really, really brilliant.
Yeah, fantastic. Sure. So it's nice to see. And again, one of the reasons we work and only work with privately owned is for this exact reason. Is it's keeping the money that our guests are paying to come and stay there. It's keeping it in the ecosystem. It's keeping it in the country, and going into these amazing projects and conservation work. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
That's amazing.
Yeah, the other big project that we sort of launched into in 2022. I think it was Don, my husband, Don, and I don't know if you know Warren Moore of King's Camp in the Timbavati, just to the north, a lovely chap. It was basically Warren and Don and the Timbavati Management Authority, which is oh my God, my brain is such a sieve at the moment.
It's the end of the year.
Pierce, yeah, it's Edwin and Candace Pierce. Edwin is the general manager of the reserve, and his wife Candace heads up the Timbavati Foundation. Anyway, long story short, I think what the objective there was how do we really create the opportunity and the possibility to create a really robust, consistent and valuable resource of supplies to the greater wildlife economy. And from that, the Timbavati Supply Chain Development Program was developed. That's a real mouthful. But essentially, it's been a project that's been running since about 2021, 22, where we have identified 10 already. We've got 10 businesses from Acorn Hook and Bushbuck Ridge. So people need to know that most of us in the lodge industry buy our goods and services from the main town centers. So there's like Hoedspruit, Nelspruit, Palabora, White River, Hazyview, Johannesburg. These are big towns and cities. what we decided to do was like, yes, of course, we will still buy from them, but let's try and find what we can see, who could possibly become robust suppliers in all of these things from Acorn Hook, Bushbuck Ridge, Klubukani, the Oaks, and so it's going to spread.
And these are the neighboring villages, settlements around
townships, actually. Yeah. So there were sort of settlements. There's sort of rural. Urban settlements, and historically these the Shangaan people, which is the local tribe of the area, did not actually settle in those areas. They were forced in apartheid years to move into those settled areas. So they had actually occupied the Blader area, which is close to where we are in Hoedspruit, which is lush and green and full of water, and they would have had their crops and their cattle there. They were then forcibly moved into Acorn Hook and Bushbuck Ridge, these massive settlements that are rural, but really tough to live in, not very arable soil, and anyway, it's where all of our staff come from, so we know a lot about it. And anyway, so we've identified these 10 businesses, and they've been through a very robust business incubation program with a company called Indalo Inclusive. The man who runs that is Rest Kanju, incredible man. And he's taken these businesses through real business planning programs with the teams, with the staff members, how to build a business plan, how to be a consistent and proper quality controlled supplier. We've helped them with registering companies, with health and safety, oh my God, you name it. And it's been exceedingly successful. And those 10 companies are now really running absolutely brilliantly. And we have then found an additional 10. So now we're up to 20 companies.
Wow.
And those additional 10 are going through the incubation phase at the moment. And they really are, I mean, the results are astounding. And we have constant communication with them. We all buy from them. It's quite a small buying group at the moment, which is basically Tanda Tula, King's Camp, Motswari, in the Timbavati, and maybe one or two others coming on board shortly. But just remember, Tanda Tula buys, we've got one egg guy called Clifford Eggs. Tanda Tula alone buys 4,500 eggs a month.
Sure.
Okay, so there's no way that Clifford can do, that now times that, and there's more beds at King's Camp and there's more beds at Motswari, so there's no way that he could do it. So, but we're helping them adapt and evolve. He has already bought the farm next door, and he's now extending there. Then we're encouraging him to actually find other egg farmers, go and check them and see if they are all up to scratch. You teach them what you've just been through and buy eggs from them, because you've got the logistics now. So it's not just about giving one guy rich, it's about him understanding the importance of bringing other egg farmers into the fold, which has really, really been superbly exciting and really, really successful. Yeah. And that's making a name for the Timbavati. I think that's really, really special.
Wow. Well done. And then your conservation work, there's obviously the Timbavati is a huge area, and you've got these settlements close by. What is the conservation work that's going on?
So the Timbavati is actually surrounded by reserve areas, so we don't have share any borders with the outside, and so look, there's sort of like a number of different levels of the conservation work that we do. But if we're going to start with the land that really is under our sort of custodianship, that is the various farms that we own in the Timbavati. So that's at the moment, that is 1, 2, 3 farms in the Timbavati. So we're talking at about 2,500 hectares under our direct management. So it's really our responsibility to ensure that the farms that we own, that we check consistently for invasive plant species, that kind of, there's so many very, as you know really well, Sean, the soil structures of our area are very, very, some areas are very fragile and some are very robust. So you have to constantly monitor your soils, where you're putting your roads, your off-road driving. When you do, when there's a lion kill, especially at the moment, we've got these massive super prides of lions. So they're killing a lot, they're killing big stuff. So basically they're there for a few days and the vehicles are coming in one direction, enjoying the sighting and driving an outer, and you have to go back and rehabilitate those grasses once the lions have moved off. So that's stuff that we're constantly working on every single day. And that's Dale Jackson and his team. He's really, really amazing with that. And then, of course, we support the Timbavati Management Authority in anything that they're doing that is bigger. So, they might come to us and say, look, your particular area, we've got this particular tree species that needs protecting. We've got that needs to be eradicated. Can you help us? We help them. We help them if there's any fires in the area. We've got huge mobile water tanks on trailers and stuff, that kind of thing. Then within the Timbavati and actually the Greater Kruger, there's a number of research programs that are here. So we have leopard, ground hornbill, vulture, to elephant, it goes on. And we then assist these research groups. We provide them with fuel, so they come and get fuel from us a couple of times a month. And that's how we support them. And obviously, if there's particular species, we'd let them put up cameras. We help them put up cameras, which call them camera traps, those kind of things. If we see any data, if any of our guides or trackers see any of these bird or animal species, they then record them, GPS, position them, share the data with the researchers, that kind of thing. So that's the sort of conservation work in a nutshell. I mean, obviously there's more to it, but that's what we do every single day. And Sean, it's not something, and all of us do the same thing. It's just part of what we do. And it's, if you don't take care of the land, you've got nothing.
It's a lot of these things that happen in the background that your guests don't necessarily get to see. They're going out on these beautiful game drives and seeing the amazing wildlife, not necessarily knowing all the work that is happening in the background. So it's good to have it out there for people to know how much work goes into maintaining these areas and conserving it all. Fantastic.
Great.
And then, people, when they think of the Greater Kruger, automatically it's the Sabi Sands. And for me, the Timbavati is our preferred area to send our guests. But from you, what drew you to the Timbavati in the first place? And why should people come to the Timbavati as opposed to maybe some of the other areas around the Kruger? What's the difference?
Good question. So the Timbavati has always been, and we have traveled a lot of the private reserves in this area, Southern Africa, you name it. But we were drawn to the Timbavati because it's a large reserve and it is exceedingly low density. So it's very uncommercialized in comparison to the Sabi Sands or other reserves in the area. And one gets a real sense of big open sky wilderness happening in the Timbavati. And from there, you see deep into the Kruger and, our neighboring reserves around us that surround us. Again, I think that's the beauty of it, the fact that we are surrounded by reserves as well. We don't share a border with anything outside of the reserve. And I just love the pace. The Timbavati has always set its own rhythm, and our guides are not only our guides, I'm talking about all the guides within the Timbavati. There's just a totally different rhythm to going out on safari as opposed to any of the other places we've been to, which is like rush, go. Like there is no need to see 3 leopards in one game drive. No, buddy. It's not necessary. You are just going crazy all over the bush. and that is unnecessary. It's just about
You're just
slowing it
popping
down.
from sighting to sighting and jumping
And there's
around
nothing
is
in
not
between.
relaxing. Yeah.
There's no relaxing. There's no just take a moment and breathe. You know, we were on our drive literally 2-3 days ago. I was in camp with Don, and we went out on drive with these amazing. We had an American couple and an Australian couple, and myself and Don. And the Australian couple been many times on safari, 9-10 times, and the American couple their first time. And we went out, and the first thing we find is beautiful leopard. We're sharing the sighting with another vehicle, which is great. That's, we spend a sort of good sort of half an hour, off we trundle. Then, Scott, she said, look, I know this particular breakaway of a lion pride is on another farm. Shall we go and have a look down there? We had a look. And Sean, we spent an hour and a half, just us, not one other vehicle, with these lions, whilst they woke up and they started stretching and they started roaring, and off they went for a walk, and we followed them, and then we watched them having a drink, and then they sat down again and flopped, and the sun is setting, and then they're roaring again, and then out of the blue 2 other lions come into the picture, and the whole thing, like the whole dynamic changes. And it was like, our guests were in tears. They were like, we knew we would. Even the seasoned safari guys, they were like, oh my God, I have never had the privilege of spending so much time with game like this ever. And I think that is something that is so extraordinary about the Timbavati. It's topography, its location, its size, and its biodiversity, and its abundance of wildlife. So it's really got everything, and I'm happy for it to stay just like that. And it's really magnificent. We're very, very privileged to be here. Yeah.
Now, I felt the same thing when I was there in March. Is you get to see those animal interactions, and as you say, it's not about ticking the boxes. We've got seen one leopard, we've got another leopard over there, let's go and see that one. It's actually about spending time with the wildlife, and this is what we try and encourage our guests to do: is don't jump around, spend time in one place. Get to know those animals and spend time with them, and you get to see things like that. So that's really good feedback, and it's the sort of stuff we tell our guests, that you need to go to these places where you're not being chased off sightings because there's a queue of vehicles behind you waiting to come in and see the same thing.
And I think it's important to remember, just as from a geographic perspective, and I'm just going to give you this as a really, really interesting piece of data, and a lot of your guests that have been to East Africa will understand. If you take the Mara Basin, it is exactly the same size if you combine the Timbavati, Klesiri, and Thorny Bush reserves. I only chose those 3 because that matched the size of the Mara. Can you believe that those 3 reserves are the same as the Mara Basin?
Wow.
If you add the number of beds between all 3 reserves, of which the Thorny Bush is the most congested, there's about 750 commercial beds between all 3 reserves. By the way, the Sabi Sands has more beds than that alone.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, but those 3 reserves, about 750 commercial beds. Do you know how many beds there are in the Mara Basin? 5,800.
Yes. Wow.
And that really gives you a moment to think about. So,
if you put that into vehicle numbers, 700, around 6 people on a vehicle, that's 120 vehicles.
I even went to 8 packs per vehicle on this one. But if you work it out, okay, I'll tell you what it is. It's the Timbavati, just for interest's sake, the Timbavati, the least dense of the 3 reserves is the Klesiri, and we're moving there next. So let me start with, let's take a small reserve that's quite high density, is looking at about 250 to 300 hectares per game drive vehicle. The Timbavati is looking at 1,500 hectares per game drive vehicle.
Sure.
And Klaseri is 3,500 hectares per game drive vehicle.
Wow.
So if you now take that Mara Basin, and I can tell you there's no more than 100, less than 100 hectares. Less, it must be 50 hectares per vehicle.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
And that 50 hectares is condensed along the river and where everything's happening. Yeah. No.
Or where there's one siding and there's 40 vehicles, and I don't want to smash the and we've got wonderful friends in the Mara, absolutely amazing friends, and they are struggling with this daily.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is that South Africa has had more than 100 years of wildlife conservation experience, more than 100 years. Okay.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for a long time, and we've quietly been just doing what we do. And I'm talking about South African national parks, I'm talking about government, I'm talking about private. And we've just been getting on with the job. And that's why we're sitting with, such extraordinary wildlife protection in this area. It's something I didn't touch on. We do support that massively with the Timbavati. But just so that you know, what's very interesting, if you take all the total number of rhino in the APNR, which is the Timbavati, Klaseri, Baluli, Ombabat, and the Thorny Bush. In those 5 reserves, we have more rhinos than any single nation on the African continent.
Sure. Wow.
We're doing something right.
Yes.
On multiple levels.
Mm.
And even if you do have a busy reserve in our area, you know this, Sean. They control their game drives really well. They really do. So there isn't this cowboy situation happening in South Africa.
Yeah.
And I must say, I think that for me is a big factor when I speak to my American agents, and they get such a fright. They're like, oh my God, what am I doing? Need to look at South Africa more seriously.
Yeah.
We need to look at this country more seriously. In the Greater Kruger National Park, which is part of the GLTFCA, we're talking about a 10 million hectare reserve that crosses 3 countries. It's extraordinary.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people see South Africa as go and tick the big 5 and kind of move on. But when you hear the stories like you're sitting with those lions, and that it is a proper safari destination, and people need to give it time and spend time getting to know the animals and just enjoying and relaxing, not racing around ticking the boxes.
And here's another factoid. I love facts. If you take the entire Greater Kruger National Park, so the Kruger National Park itself, plus all of the private reserves on its western boundary, okay?
Yeah.
That's all of us from Pafuri all the way down to Crockbridge. You take all of those reserves, plus every camp within the Greater Kruger National Park, starting at Punda Maria and ending down at the south, okay? You take every camp and every road and every form of infrastructure over that entire area, including all the private reserves, less than 1% of the landmass is developed.
Sure. Wow.
So let's talk about wilderness spaces.
Yeah.
And most of that is collected within the western boundary area, which is us guys in the private reserves, and in your north-south region on that tar road going from Punda Maria all the way south. We're talking about a massive region that is a very, very low density. If you compare that to any other reserve, whether it's the Okavango Delta or whatever, we are much, much lower in density than any of the reserves in the safari, on the safari map of Africa. The Greater Kruger National Park actually continues to expand. It continues to grow through mainly the private reserves. And whilst all other reserves, or pretty much most of the other reserves in Africa, are shrinking. So this is why you've got to really pay attention a little bit more to South Africa and to understand that, there is a much bigger picture here at government level that is promising to actually increase the current land size that is under wildlife management in South Africa, which is 17% of the land, and that's either government or private, to increase that to 30%.
Wow.
Okay.
That's
because they
encouraging.
understand the value of these wildlife spaces and the photographic tourism that is associated with them. And if you do the right thing by incorporating with community the way you do, then this really becomes a very, very viable vision for the country and for the well-being of the rural nations of people here. Yeah.
Well, very encouraging. That's great to hear.
Good.
And going forward, what is you touched on a couple of other properties and Kasiri and moving in there and tented camps. What's the exciting projects on the horizon for the Tanda Tula team?
Yeah, so there's the first immediate surprise is that we are building a second camp in the Timbavati, just southeast of Tanda Tula. So going down onto the Rothsay farm, you wouldn't have gone on there before. And we bought that farm, and it's about 10 k's or so south of Safari Camp. It's going to be the sister to the brother. It's going to be 18 beds, also with 2 very, very comfortable family suites and 5 safari suites. It's going to be similar but different. I know that sounds really weird, but it's basically a complementary product to Safari Camp, and a new architect for this job. It's Jack Alexander. He's absolutely brilliant young mind. He's got an amazing team, lovely team. So it's going to be absolutely stunning. And so that's rolling. We hope to break ground with that in the first quarter of next year, of 26. Wow. And then I think we've already submitted, and it's been accepted, our EIA for our tented camp, which is going to be in the Kasiri. And I think that'll be very, very exciting. It's just lovely to be. I mean, I think it's really important to put these wildlife spaces on the map, and all of there's not many, but the commercial lodges that are there have been very, very welcoming and very excited that Tanda Tula is coming in. And it's important, if you do have a brand that carries some name or some weight. And I'm not saying that we're not a big player, but people do sometimes listen to us. And it's really important that you do actually help put these wildlife spaces on the map, because they need to be preserved, they need to function, and without tourism, photographic tourism, that's going to be very, very difficult to do. And it's a beautiful, beautiful area. So going back to the tented over there, and we have the sister to the brother in the Timbavati, and a new tented camp.
Perfect. Up. And if I remember correctly, the fences between Timbavati and Kasiri came down earlier this year. So
no, those fences have been down since the 1950s or 1960s. Oh, wow. What the fence that went down was between the Thorny Bush and the Timbavati. So that went down in just before COVID. So, and it's going to continue. So you've actually got, beyond Thorny Bush, you've got Kapama, and they've already prepared themselves for that transition, which could be happening soon. Which is amazing. Which is absolutely amazing.
Sure. So again, a lot of people, when you talk to them about non-Sabi Sands properties, they're like, but we're not going to see the same wildlife and things like that. But they don't understand that there's no fences between these areas, and the wildlife moves freely between all these wilderness areas. So you're getting exactly the same wildlife sightings, if not better.
And Don sits on the exco of the Timbavati, and we, all of us, very gladly share our data from our animal census that we do annually, whether it's Sabi Sands, Kasiri, Umbabat, everybody's talking to each other. And I can absolutely guarantee you that the game numbers are identical. There's no more leopards in one place and more lions in another. You'll have certain species that prefer certain areas, without a doubt, like buffalo. They love our area. Lions love our area. Sabi Sands has got fabulous, lots of riverines, so there are leopards, but it's not like one area is more than another. It depends on how many eyes you have on the ground. So the more vehicles that are out on game drive, the more chance you will see something. So if you are in a highly congested area with lots of vehicles, you're going to see more animals.
Yeah. Makes sense, yes.
So you kind of like got to weigh it up, right? You know, do you want this busy traffic jam situation and see everything all the time, every single game drive?
Yeah.
Or do you want to actually just slow it down, lessen the impact on the earth, just to be calmer, spend more time with that animal or whatever it is, and just enjoy, you know? So that's what we choose. That's what we choose.
Yeah. I choose that as well.
Yeah.
For me, there's nothing better than being in a vehicle and actually working and tracking the animal and finally coming across it and finding it. And, you know, you've worked for it, as opposed to the guy going, okay, we've got something over here. Boom, there we go. There's your leopard in a tree. Oh, we've got something over here, and zigzagging across. Actually working for your wildlife sightings.
I love that,
so much
actually,
more
working
rewarding.
for your wildlife. That is a very cool way to put it. And it should be that.
Yeah.
It should be that. This is not Disneyland.
Yeah.
People need to stop.
Sometimes you don't find it. Sometimes you don't. And that's wildlife. That's nature.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. Or it crosses a boundary and it goes into the Kruger, or it crosses a boundary onto a farm that is not commercialized. So you've got to say bye-bye to that animal. You know, that's how it works. And no, I like that.
Yeah, we tried to look for the cheetah, and we knew more or less where it was, but we didn't end up seeing it. But that is, you know, we saw other amazing stuff and got to see another part of the reserve. And that's nature. You sometimes find them and sometimes you don't, but when you work for it, it's more rewarding when you do actually end up finding it in the end. So
I agree with you. It's very exhilarating. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Nina, thank you so much. This was amazing. Lovely chatting to you again. Good luck for the festive season. I assume you're extremely busy in the camp.
Fully booked. Yeah.
Good. Well,
thank you.
I thank you again for your time. Thank you so much for taking such great care of our guests and the area that you are operating in. It is very, very important that we know that the money our guests are spending are going into the right places. And we love sending our guests your way. So hopefully many, many more to come.
Thank you, Sean. And I just want to say thank you to you, because you really have, you and your team really have an extraordinary knack of pairing the right guest with the right destination. And, you know, that's a real art. I don't know if your guests know that, but it's a real art that, you know, we know what we're all about. And the fact that you know us so well, and many other destinations throughout the continent, that you know how to find the right destination for that guest. I think that's a fine art, and you guys do it brilliantly. And thank you so much for that. Thank you.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
Great.
Good. All right. You have a fantastic Christmas and New Year, and we will see you in 2027.
Absolutely.
26.
Yes, we're not there yet.
Oh my God. My mind is jumping. Okay.
Thanks, Nina.
Okay, ciao. Bye.
Regards to everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Bye.